Hey everyone, and happy Monday. Hope you are all doing well. For today's topic, I want to talk about inflation. Inflation is basically things getting more expensive over time, and lately things have been getting a lot more expensive over time. And so this makes a big impact on how much we charge people. It's a really important topic, and I want to jump straight into that lecture. Now, after that, I will go into news and artist highlights, and then any Q&A you guys may have along the way. So let's check out the video. Inflation. It's something that everyone needs to be thinking about right now when it comes to how much you charge somebody for your work. And for those of you who are not native English speakers, inflation means the cost of things going up over time. So let's go ahead and take a look at the sort of inflation that we've seen over the past few years to get us started. So if you were to read any finance textbook, they would generally say that the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index, is there to keep track of how much more expensive things get every single year, as just a generality. However, if you were to go here, you're going to find that the actual percentage of price increases is way less than what you actually spend your money on. Now, I want to highlight this spot right here. It says the all items index rose 5.4% for the 12 months ending June. So that means if you were to take the end of June and go back 12 months ago, that means according to the government, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, things have only increased 5.4%. And if you're living in the United States like I am, you'll know that the goods and services that you buy on an everyday basis have gone up far more than 5.4%. So the first thing that I want to really point out here is that when we're talking about inflation, let's talk about inflation for the things that you buy on an everyday basis. If we take a look at your bank account, where does your money go? The things that you spend money on, that's really what matters when it comes to measuring the effect of your purchasing power. So I want to start off by mentioning that if you're looking at CPI, you're not going to find a very accurate reading. Now, there is a really cool website here called shadowstats.com. If you're not familiar with this website, this is a fantastic website of getting better data to give you an idea of where things might actually be at. So in this case, we have our CPI year-to-year growth. And ShadowStats tends to be a little bit aggressive in how it measures CPI and a couple of other index measurements. However, this is a far better measurement than what you're going to find with the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So according to ShadowStats, if we go down here, there's two ways of measuring CPI. There's the official versus ShadowStats 1990 based alternative, and then there is a 1980 based alternative. See, the thing is that when measuring how things get more expensive, that way of measuring it has changed over time. And it's changed over time to benefit mostly the government. However, let's take a look down here to the 1980 as a good example, okay? So in 1981, we had inflation really high at 15%. And then as we continue on down the line here, we could see that we're actually close to about the same, around 14% in 2021 thus far. And so I tend to think that if you're looking for an accurate measurement of inflation, 14% is going to be a better measurement for inflation as opposed to the 5 point whatever percent that we saw with our government stats. So what does that mean on a practical level? Suppose that you make $100,000 per year and you want to maintain your purchasing power from 2020 to 2021. Well, in order for you to have the same amount of purchasing power, that means you need to have a $15,000 raise sometime between 2020 and 2021. Just to break even on the stuff that you can buy with your dollars according to a CPI measurement, which is pretty significant. If you've never thought about this, imagine going to an interview asking for $15,000 more a year, and then that's basically like telling your employer, hey, I'd like to keep my same level of purchasing power that I had a year ago. That's what the situation is from 2020 to 2021. Now, that's by looking at CPI as a form of measurement. And if we take a look at the ShadowStats measurement, that's actually a pretty decent way of figuring out in general where your purchasing power is at. However, I would counter that if we take a look at some of the most expensive things that we spend our money on, specifically housing, food, those things in particular have gone up way more in the past year than other things have. And so the CPI, because it measures all kinds of different things, kind of gets a little bit washed out because it's measuring different things. But the two things that you spend the most money on are getting really, really hot. So let's take a look at housing prices now to see where that's at. Now, there's many different ways to measure the cost of housing in the United States. Obviously, it depends on the market that you're looking at. The cost of living in LA is not going to be the same as Idaho, as an example. But as a rule of thumb, I've found Redfin to be probably the most accurate when it comes to their numbers. It's not perfect, but in general, Redfin seems to have the right sort of things going on, from what I can tell. Now, if we take a look at 2017, the average house price in the United States was around $246,000. If we go to today, $386,000, that is over $100,000 increase in under 5 years. And as a matter of fact, if we take a look at the beginning of 2021 in January, the average was $330. And since then, it's gone up about $50,000. And so this gives us a 24% increase year over year for the median sale price of a house, which is, as you can imagine, way higher than what we saw with our CPI. So I'm sure many of you right now are saying, yeah, Tyler, things have gone up $50,000 since January. That is kind of a big deal, but look at interest rates. Look how cheap it is to borrow money. So let's take a look at that real quick and see what that picture says. So here I want to show you a map of Fort Collins, Colorado, which is about where I live. I'm obviously not going to show you guys where I live on the map, but I live in this general area, okay? And first of all, notice how most of these prices that we're looking at here are, well, kind of above $380 if you want something decent. I mean, your average price for a house that's not super old and might have problems with it is realistically about $400,000 and up. Now, if we go to, let's say, one of these houses for, I don't know, let's say this one right here for $400,000. This is a 3-bed, 1.5 baths. It's only about 1,100 square feet, and it looks like this was built in 1960. Okay, very, very expensive for what this is, in my opinion. Now, if we go down here to this payment calculator, we can get a sense of what our monthly payment's going to be based on some kind of down payment. Now, one thing right away that you're going to run into with a high sticker price, a high overall price here, is the down payment. And so right now, if the down payment is over 20%, that means I need to show up with $84,000 in order for this to be how much I pay every single month. Now, suppose I don't have that kind of money, and I don't, quite frankly. If we go down to less than that, we now have to start paying mortgage insurance. And that mortgage insurance is based off of the large sticker price as well. And so now we're at about $2,000 a month, and that's if I show up with a $24,000 down payment. Not only does the mortgage insurance get you on a situation like this, but if you were to ever turn around and sell this house, you would have to pay the realtor based on a percentage of the sticker price, which right now is really, really high. And so even if you're thinking, okay, well, if I can just afford this monthly payment for a little while and then turn around and sell this, assuming that the price keeps going up, I can make a bunch of money. However, again, because you're paying a percentage of the high sticker price, that may not be the case. As a matter of fact, you probably won't be able to make a whole lot of money on this, again, assuming that prices go up for at least 5 years. If prices go up for another 5 years, you might be able to make a bit of money after all the fees are said and done. And honestly, I just can't see how your average person can afford something with prices this ridiculous for much longer. I mean, it's kind of amazing that people have been affording this in the first place, or I guess it's amazing that people have been putting themselves under this much debt for as long as they have. Anyway, I just want to really point out here that even though interest rates are low, the high sticker price still matters quite a bit due to other fees associated with the overall price. So I hope I've made my point that there are many things that are getting far more expensive really quickly right now. Inflation is something that you need to be thinking about because your purchasing power is ultimately what you charge a client. It's, yes, a dollar number, but that dollar number, it only means something based on what you can do with it, right? This is something I talked about in the previous Wrangles. It's all about what can I do with the money that you give me. After everything is said and done, That's what you're asking from your employer or your clients or whoever pays you money, okay? So how do you ask for more money? I'd like to give you 2 tips in the rest of this wrangle that will help you on the right track to doing just that. Takeaway number 1, be tactful. When you go to ask for more money, the last thing you want to say is, hey boss, look, times are tough, inflation's crazy, I'm really hurting right now, so I need more money. And that's it. That never goes well. Nobody ever wants to hear that, even though it's true. And the problem is that, yes, it's inflating for you, but it's also inflating for your boss too. And so that they need to figure out how to ask the people that pay them more money as well. And so in a way, it's kind of like, yeah, same here. I'm in the same boat. That's why I can't pay you more money. And that's why it's a frustrating conversation, right? So being tactful about it is recognizing that your employer or your client is in the same situation as you are. So if you come to your clients and you just burden them with your problems, in their eyes, they feel like you're just adding to their stress, adding to their issues, right? And it kind of comes off as, here's my problems, fix it, I don't care how, or else, right? And like I said, it's just not a very tactful way of going about this. Instead of doing that, my recommendation is you can go ahead and maybe change your responsibilities. That might be a better way of phrasing that. Try to figure out how you can offer something to your client that you haven't offered before. That could be a really cool way of doing it. And it doesn't have to be in a way that just adds to your existing work. It could just be a different kind of work that seems new, pretty, shiny, and something that you need to justify a higher price for. So that could be one way of going about it. That's a much more tactful way of approaching it. If you are a freelancer, you also need to diversify your clients. And this is takeaway number 2. If you're a freelancer or even if you work at a studio full time, you need to diversify your contacts and your clients. Because at some point or another, even if you try the whole, I want more responsibilities trick, it doesn't mean that you're going to make enough to keep up with inflation. And so you need to at some point tell people, no, I'm not working for that cheaper price, and be able to move on to something else, even if it's not paying you more money. Now, I know that sounds kind of weird because you're thinking, well, Tyler, isn't the point so that I make more money, right? Why would I, let's say, give up a stable job, tell them no to a price, and then go somewhere else that pays me the same or even less? Well, it's because if you say no in a tactful way, if you say no, this is my price, these are my goals, and if you can't meet them right now, that's totally okay. We can part ways professionally. If you approach it in a way that doesn't burn the bridge, and you go and you work somewhere else for a little bit, then the employer is going to run into this issue more and more and more at the low price that they're at. And when they do, at some point or another round of work's going to come up. Maybe they get another big project, right? And they're going to come to you and say, hey, look, I kind of, had some trouble when I hired people for a cheaper price. Are you available? That's when you can actually charge your higher price. So sometimes you have to let your clients learn the hard way that if you go ahead and go with the cheaper work, it might end up costing you more money, more man hours to get something done. And sometimes in order to do that, you got to tell people no. You got to say, you know what, this gig didn't work out because it doesn't meet my goals, and go somewhere else for a period of time. But in order to go somewhere else, you have to diversify your clients. You have to diversify your contacts. This, by the way, is exactly why freelancers make so much more than full-time employees, much to the full-time employees' dismay, is because they can do these sort of things, right? you don't have as much stability, but in return, you can charge more money over time because you're not locked into that particular studio environment. You're not locked into the classic, hey, I'd like to take on more responsibility, become a workaholic, and get a $5,000 raise, right? You're not subject to that kind of scenario. So more and more, what I see is that if you are a professional 3D artist, it's not going to benefit you in a inflationary environment to stay at studios. It's going to benefit you to jump around more often through these inflationary times. And that's kind of what it's been lately. And for better or worse, that's just kind of how it is for the time being. So again, those two things: be tactful and diversify your clientele. Those are my two tips on how you can survive inflation, how you can keep your purchasing power intact. Now, there's a lot more to be said about all this, but for right now, that is a couple of things to think about. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that presentation. This is, again, just kind of scratching the surface of what to do with this inflationary environment. Everyone from middle management, upper management, down to the bottom needs to figure out how to deal with inflation as things get more expensive really, really quickly. So perhaps over the next few lessons, I might add in some more tips and tricks when it comes to fighting inflation, but I hope this gets you at least thinking about the topic. Because the one way to really lose in this situation is not thinking about it, is staying in your current gig and, let's say, losing 20% of your purchasing power year on year. If you do that for very long, you're going to be in really bad shape. Also, what I would say is that based on the CPI and everything else that we just talked about with the real estate prices, and I didn't get into food prices, but those have nearly doubled recently. What I would say is that if you make, let's say, $100,000, I think that you need to be making probably about 20% more than that to actually preserve your purchasing power from 2020 to 2021, which is huge. That's not a normal number. Getting a $20,000 raise is not an easy thing to do at $100,000. But that's, in my opinion, where things are about at. So I just want to, again, introduce that topic if you've never heard about it before. So for the rest of this wrangle, let's go ahead and talk about some industry news. I have a artist highlights, and I want to tell you what I'm up to at CG Forge. In the meantime, if you have any general questions, at the very end, I'll be here to hang out with you guys and talk with whatever you guys find interesting, or it's really just an open forum for questions, things that are professionally related, right? And we'll just go from there. So let me pull up some of these articles over here. Okay. So first bit of news that I thought was kind of cool. The Instant Terra team announces bridge to Houdini. Now, I personally haven't used Instaterra before, but I think it's pretty cool because this is a program that's specifically dedicated towards terrain. And to have a integration in Houdini, basically with just one node, is what this is. According to the team, now you just have to link the Instaterra project with an Instaterra node in Houdini, and the terrain is ready to use. So that's pretty cool. Yes, Houdini does have some terrain tools, but it's sometimes nice to include other algorithms as well. Those other algorithms will make your terrain work look different than everyone else's. And so that's a pretty good selling point, in my opinion, for the Instaterra folks. So that's pretty cool. It's good to know about that. Also, Naughty Dog and Santa Monica veterans launch studio That's New Moon. Or That's No Moon, I should say. The new company has already secured a $100 million investment from Crossfire Studio Smilegate. So a team of industry vets from well-known studios, including Naughty Dog, Infinity Ward, Sony's Santa Monica Studio, EA, and Bungie, revealed that they launched a new AAA studio called That's No Moon. The company has managed to secure $100 million from Crossfire Studio Smilegate to develop the first title, which is developed as a story-driven action-adventure game. So this is pretty cool. In my opinion, if you're interested in getting in on some really great cutting-edge game dev opportunities, this studio could be a really great place to go right now. It's based in LA and San Diego, and they plan on employing nearly 100 people by 2022. They describe their vision as creating unforgettable stories and characters that will define and extend beyond medium. And their website is right here. That's No Moon. So something to keep an eye on for sure. I think that, seeing the new studios that pop up is a new studio like this pop up is a really cool opportunity for folks who want to get in on the ground floor of things that are brand new and exciting. So one last thing, we have the artist highlights for today. Ashish Singha 3D. Hope I said that right. He is a lighting artist. And I noticed that he had a Alfred the Rhino down here that was looking pretty sweet at one point. So that caught my eye, and it looks like since then he's done some really cool pyro stuff like this. And let's see if we can get it actually moving here. Looks like this is just a still GIF, kind of a composite right here. But I liked his work. I thought it was pretty cool. I like this little, fish monster guy. I guess that's from a Digital Tutors Pluralsight tutorial, which is pretty sweet. And he's kind of messed around with some RenderMan stuff and V-Ray. So pretty cool. At some point, I definitely want to cover more render engines on CG Forge. I know you guys would be interested in that as well. So anyway, just wanted to give a shout out to Ashish. Okay. So this one is from MS Pexy. I want to ask, is it bad to have tutorial things on your demo reel to get the first job? Secondly, I'm 29 years old. Is it too late to start in this industry? So I don't think it's bad to have tutorial things on your demo reel. I would, however, say that if you want to stand out and be different, then change out the models, change out the lighting a little bit, do something to make it your own. It is more ideal, in my opinion, to take a tutorial as a starting place and then make it into your own. It shows that you're passionate about the medium, that you're having fun with it, for one. You're not just trying to follow the steps to get a job. You're just enjoying yourself along the way, making fun, creative projects, and that's a good thing. And also, like I said, it separates you from other folks, from the projects that everyone has seen. I mean, you have to realize that when people are hiring for these gigs, they see the same projects all the time. People have seen all the Steven Nipping projects over and over and over again. I'm sure they've seen some CG Forge projects over and over again as well. And so you want to just take that and bounce off of it. And then that, in my opinion, is perfectly fine to do. Now, as for being 29 years old, I don't think that's too late at all. Honestly, it's, if you were to say, Tyler, I'm thinking about starting medical school at 29, and it's going to take me 10 years to get through it, I might say, well, maybe you're a little too old for that. Probably not, though, even then. So especially for 3D graphics, I don't think you're too old. I mean, I'm personally, how old am I? I'm like 28 or something like that. I'm about the same age. And yeah, I don't think that's an issue for you at all, honestly. Okay, let's see here. This one is from Strider. What amount of knowledge is needed to be starting with Houdini in industry? Well, it depends on the job that you want to get. Are you trying to be an effects artist? Are you trying to be a pipeline TD? The skills that you need for those jobs are very different. So what I would say is that you have to think in the studio shoes. Okay, I'm paying someone money for something here, right? Let's say it's as an effects artist. And so you have to imagine, okay, I'm a studio paying for an effects artist. That means anytime I have a water sim, a fire sim, a cloth sim that comes up, I want to be able to just put that responsibility on the effects artist. And so my advice is the knowledge you need to have is a general foundation of things. And so you want to just kind of try a little bit of everything, try a little bit of pyro, a little bit of RBD, some procedural modeling, go through all the different topics like that. And then after you've done kind of a general knowledge of everything, I would try to pick one topic to really specialize in and then use that to advertise yourself. Be known as, let's say, the pyro guy because you just obsess over pyro. That's a really good selling point for you at first. And so, again, I guess to answer that question, learn a bit of everything first and then specialize. And if you do that, then by the end of it, you ought to have, in my opinion, a good skill set for getting started at a studio. Okay. Well, that is pretty much what I got for today. This one here is from Steve. Will you cover any flip fluids, small scale, drink beer, pours, etc.? Yes, I will eventually. I know it's been a while since I published a new course. However, don't worry because that's going to be happening very soon. With flip fluids, actually, I'm going to get to that probably a little bit later on. I want to cover, I want to finish the RBD series. I want to finish the Pyro series that I've been working on first. And then once I get those things wrapped up, then I'll take a look at fluids. But yes, that is on the agenda eventually. Okay, this is from Mostafa Ashraf. What I need to be a TD or what skills do I have to have? Well, that's kind of like what I was just talking about a second ago. You want to have a general skill set first, and then you want to specialize in something. That would be the way to do it. Okay, let me show you guys one more thing before we wrap up. This is a brand new announcement on CG Forge that I'm really excited about. And if you go to CG Forge, you'll notice that now we have professional resources. The Node Bible, and the weekly Wrangle. I'm getting this more legit now, which is great. So starting with the Node Bible, if you've never heard of this, it's basically the best thing since sliced bread for effects artists. Because if you've ever tried to read the user docs, you'll know that they're super confusing, they're very poorly written, it's just not a fun time. However, I've gone through some of the most commonly used nodes and made them way easier to understand. And I've gone through each individual parameter to provide better explanations for them. So if, let's say, we go to the pop attract as an example, you go there. Not only do you have a couple of videos where I demonstrate how to use that node. So these are like quick tips, basically. Not only do you have that, you have a summary. And then you have what each individual parameter does. You have basically like an encyclopedia written out, again, in things that are easier to understand. So as you're working on any kind of project, you forget what, let's say, the force method is supposed to do or something, which happens all the time. Now you have a resource to look at what that parameter does. And again, this is just amazing because it saves you time, ultimately. So if you are a CG Forge subscriber currently, then you already have access to the Node Bible, which is awesome. If you're not a subscriber at the moment, then you have a few different options. So you can subscribe right now for $50 a month, or you can choose any of the 3-month subscription, 6 or 12, or at the very end, a brand new type here, the resources only subscription, which is $20 a month. So I just want to let you guys know about that Node Bible because it is amazing. And I'll probably keep talking about this until it gets almost annoying. But we have that, plus we have the weekly Wrangle. And I just want to let you guys know that what I'll be doing for these Wrangles from now on is after 5 weeks, I'm going to archive them here in the weekly Wrangle section. So I've put all the Wrangles I've done thus far. Again, after 5 weeks, they're going to be archived here. And if you're a subscriber, you can go back and look at some old weekly Wrangles. The idea for all of this is that if you think about the perfect study day, let's say you're trying to learn Houdini, you want a little bit of everything, right? You have a bit of career advice, maybe, to sprinkle in with everything. You have maybe some dry kind of just, node readings going on. So if you read a brand new node every single day, it'll start adding up for you. And then you also have the tutorials. And I also give you exercises in those tutorials so that you can have something to play with on your own. The combination of all those different things is my vision of what I want CG Forge to be for you guys. I want you to design your perfect study day for Houdini with the tools that I make at CG Forge. So I want to let you guys know about that. And I think that you're going to really, really enjoy it. Okay, well, that about does it for today. It's great hanging out with you guys, and I hope you all have a fantastic week. Till next time, I will see you later.